I normally avoid my subreddit like the plague, for obvious reasons, but I got tipped from a mod that after the "we should extend infinite jihad to rural America" conversation, there were people in there talking about it, and they were actually agreeing with me. Now, mind you, lest I get hit with the cult leader accusations, it's not about the subreddit agreeing with me or disagreeing with me. That's not the key point. That's not the difference, okay? It's about whether or not they're being reflexively contrarian, okay? That's the annoying bit. All right? But no, I went in there and there were a bunch of people being like, yeah, tie me to a rocket and fire me at, any basically like 4/5 of the counties of the United States. I've lived around them all my life. They really are just stupid cultists. You have to understand this and stop infantilizing them and just see them for what they are. That line from the last stream about them being Mongols waiting for a strong leader to direct them is 100% accurate. What gets me is that we're all supposed to pretend these are the real Americans, while everyone that lives in a city and are the elite and not real American, when that's where all of our shit comes from. Don't forget they're the only real working class in America, too. Every job in the city is elite and disconnected from the real world, even the bus drivers, trash collectors, and McJob workers. My family came from them. Mom and dad left the rural villages for the city, and my sister and I got a good public school education. The whole of my rural family turned into MAGA cultists that today I have nearly a dozen of them blocked on my socials. They are absolutely some of the dumbest people I've ever interacted with. Oh, man. Rock-sucking dipshits, uneducated people completely uncurious about the world. Yeah, people are getting bitter about the real American rhetoric. It's been going on for decades. Dude, I'm bitter about the real American rhetoric. I always have been. It sucks. Why did we cede that to them? American culture since the 1970s and onward, at the very least, has overwhelmingly come from city. I mean, it has even before that, but still. And then, for some reason, we just ceded the idea that these people who live these, weird, self-isolatory, uneducated lives are somehow, the real... Why? Why did we decide that? As someone from a rural area that has to live lives surrounded by these people, they are genuinely some of the dumbest motherfuckers out there. Their entire lives consist of going to church on Sundays, then coming home to watch Hannity or whatever. On the drive back, they have to remember to roll coal from their lifted diesel pickup onto the local homeless person. It cannot be overstated how peasant-brained these troglodytes are. Oh, here, I found the one comment I upvoted before. Their minds have long been melted by an unending stream of talk radio and Fox News. Their only ambition in life is to get to shoot someone. Their wildest dream is assaulting a fast food worker because they forgot their fries. This guy knows rural Americans. These people do not leave the state. They do not leave their country. They think cities are desolate wastelands patrolled by roving gangs. The most traveling they do is once a year going to a rival high school to watch a football game. They're xenophobic to an absurd degree. Every Hispanic they see has to be an illegal immigrant. Thanks to Trump, they despise Canada now. To call them dumb doesn't quite capture the full picture. These people's brains are soup. If anything, we need to be meaner to rural Americans. I didn't realize the rural-urban divide in the States was this bad. I think that materially the divide is the same in basically every country, but culturally the divide in America might have been magnified significantly by basically talk radio, I think. The rural-urban divide and the effects of it are a thing everywhere, but I think the current schism is being magnified by a very specific, targeted propaganda strategy. If you went back 30 years ago, the rural-urban divide would still be there, but I don't think it would be quite as pointed as it is right now. I'd have to think about it. That's just a guess on my part. I wasn't really alive 30 years ago. I guess I was 1 year old 30 years ago, which is, how much of the divide is religious? A large amount of it, which is why I think we need to be more anti-theist as well. Dude, look at how much cultural ground the left has ceded by allowing Christians to pretend like being religious is countercultural again. Oh yeah, dude, being a Christian theocrat is punk rock or whatever. We need to roll that the back. I'm so sick of bad faith lefty actors being no, listen, okay, my specific brand of queer trans paganism is actually revolutionary. So when you smear religious people, you're casting too wide of a net. No, you need to dial it back a little bit. I don't care. Is Northeast Ohio rural America? I don't know. I haven't been there. Let me drive through it. I retweeted so much shit yesterday. Holy fuck, there's so much stuff to cover. Oh my god. Just use Google Maps, lol. Yeah, but that doesn't really describe an area that well. I'm trying to find this one really mean passage that I saw about rural Americans. It was so mean that I disagree with it. It's a little liberal for my taste. But what matters is that it was funny. That's the main thing I care about. Can't quite find it, though. No, literally, yeah. There's been this weird obsession with like keeping rural areas rural, even to their own detriment, because there's some kind of like cultural goodness that's been to be preserved there. Which no, there isn't. Everyone is fleeing rural America. Like that's insane. You know? Um, it's just they're the most talked down to and patronized group in America, but they deserve it because they're so f***ing stupid and they bring so much of it on themselves. Understand that I'm talking about them as a political class, not so much every individual who lives in rural areas. There are plenty of fine individuals who live in rural areas, but you know perfectly well that doesn't necessarily represent like the mannerisms of the group. Yeah, Sublime Object, with regards to them being bored, I think the article snippet that I looked at said like Donald Trump makes rural America feel good. So does Oxycontin. Like the idea being that these people are so spiritually deprived, so bored, so like listless, that the reason they like Donald Trump is just because it gives them a little kick, which I think is largely true. It's certainly not because Trump promises to improve their lives. Reminds me of the Nazi who moved to rural America to recruit fellow Nazis, and he couldn't do it because none of them wanted to be educated, and he just got miserably angry. That's funny. So imagine being so lumpenprole that you can't even become a full fascist. You're not even a lumpenprole, you're just a lumpen at that point. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is very mean. It's probably unfair. This is true. A big reason why the libs can't connect with middle America and the non-college educated is not out of contempt, quite the opposite. We romanticize them and extend infinite charity. Yes, we condescend to them. We view them as noble savages, but noble nonetheless. We tell ourselves they lead simple yet virtuous lives. So we should nominate a wholesome father figure and football coach from the area. Except they don't. People need to read theory. Oh, this is talking about how why rural Americans didn't like Mike Walls, which is true. If you spend time in Hardscrabble, white upstate New York, or eastern Kentucky, or my own native West Texas, and you take an honest look at the welfare dependency, the drug and alcohol addiction, the family anarchy, which is to say, the whelping of human children with all the respect and wisdom of a stray dog, you will come to an awful conclusion. Tim Walls. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. It wasn't Beijing. It wasn't even Washington, as bad as Washington could be. It wasn't immigrants from Mexico, excessive and problematic as our current immigration levels are. It wasn't any of that. Nothing happened to them. There wasn't some awful disaster. There wasn't a war or a famine or a plague or a foreign occupation. Even the economic changes of the past few decades do very little to explain the dysfunction and negligence and the incomprehensible malice of poor white America. So the gypsum business in Garbutt ain't what it used to be. There is more to life in the 21st century than wallboard and cheap sentimentality about how the man closed the factories down. The truth about these dysfunctional downscale communities is that they deserve to die. Economically, they are negative assets. Morally, they are indefensible. Forget all your cheap theatrical Bruce Springsteen crap. Forget your sanctimony about struggling Rust Belt towns and your conspiracy theories about the wily Orientals stealing our jobs. Forget your goddamn gypsum, and if he has a problem with that, forget Ed Burke too. The white American underclass is enthralled to a vicious, selfish culture whose main products are misery and used heroin needles. Donald Trump's speeches make them feel good. So does Oxycontin. What they need isn't analgesics, literal or political. They need real opportunity, which means they need real change, which means they need U-Haul. The worst she can say is no. Was this written by a white person? Only a Yakubian experiment could express this much contempt. I think that might be the point, Annie, about how people like misinterpret Bruce Springsteen all the time, and they like they act as though what he did was like meant to be a sincere. I mean, for sake, they keep playing Bruce Springsteen at Trump rallies, right? I don't know. Wasn't the opioid crisis a serious factor in the more recent shift? Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of addressed. Hello, Ruben. Wait, so who wrote this? I don't know. What am I, a political commentator? Jesus Christ, you people. Quote this, type it into Google. I'm just reading something out loud because I thought it was funny. The Wily Orientals, a great cover band. Yep. Do you remember that story of the Soviets turning women in backwards villages into scientists and doctors at gunpoint? We need to do that to all of Appalachia. You think that's a joke, but I unironically believe that. There are lots of anecdotes from the early Soviet period where they essentially said, like, yeah, Russia is massive, right? The Soviet Union was massive, and it has so many villages and so many ethnic communities. And listen, the Soviets did a lot of genocide, okay? A lot of ethnic cleansing. However, there were lots of instances of them wandering into, like, a rural village and essentially saying, like, this is what germ theory is. This is what feminist egalitarianism is. Here's a gun. Do society properly. And the tribal elder was like, well, we don't want to do this. And the Soviet was like, well, I'll kill you if you don't. It's not about laundering the reputation or anything. It's that, you know, I'm not saying you can't learn any lessons. So if we make everyone live in the city, farm workers will commute to the city of the fields. Very few rural Americans work on farms. This is unironically like rural sentimental propaganda they push in us. Many of them do, but not most. Like not even close to most. Yeah, they work at Dollar Tree. But what do they work as? Like, what else is there? Well, a lot of them are unemployed. A lot of them work like they're like self-employed nothing farms. Like they have a farm plot that they can register as a farm, but there's no productive output. A lot of them work at like the Dollar Tree, but a lot of them commute to cities anyway. You know, like if a lot of rural people, if you move them to the closest town, they would just not have a commute anymore. Like it wouldn't be them commuting out to the farms in the sticks. It would be them moving into the city where they actually work, you know? And a lot of them are, yeah, unironic welfare queens. If you want to take a look at the distribution of like tax investment from the government between infrastructure and subsidies and everything versus how much they pay out in tax revenue, the difference between cities and rural areas is fucking psychotic. The rural mega economy only made sense when like 60% of people worked as farmers, you know? Kill the Midwesterner, save the man. This would be the political project I would embark on if I was president, okay? It would be like Native American style schooling to you know, like you have a bunch of like Midwesterners and hicks and rednecks and stuff sitting like 40-year-old men sitting, and you're like going from person to person, like doing their hair properly, giving them like city haircuts. You're giving them like broccoli cuts. They have like the mullet or whatever, or they have like that flat like the hat hair or whatever, and you're like, no, this is how men style themselves, and then they look like one of the Da Vinci twins or something. Saving the man. What's your take on the Beverly Hillbillies? Well, I saw like one half of the mega video that Quentin Review's dad put out, which I actually kind of enjoyed the show based on what I saw, mostly because it felt like it was mostly satirizing, I don't know, like pompous bourgeois tendencies. But I don't know, like it was charming in like a 50s kind of way. That article was written by a National Review dipshit. I mean, you can tell they're a dipshit because they act as though nothing happened to rural Americans when the raping and pillaging of small America by companies like Walmart and Dollar Tree has been going on for like a long time and has had extremely obvious effects in their economy. So this was definitely written by someone right of being a liberal. But, you know, it's still funny. Also, 90% of it's true. Didn't they allow this by voting Republican? Nah, not really. Democrats did the exact same thing. The big economic shift that led to the death of small-town America was a bipartisan effort. Republicans are currently responsible for, like, destroying the country and the world and fascism and reactionary politics largely. But this specific thing, the, like, robbing of small America, that's a bipartisan effort. Never forget what Walmart did to my small-ass town. Every single mom and pop closed in a year, every single one, and never returned. Yep. And yet, for some reason, all of the communities affected by the harm that Walmart and other big box stores did never developed class consciousness. It just sucks a little because, like, in a book or a movie or something, you'd have like all of these discontented small town Americans who are like, we want the old way back. Walmart did this to us, but they all think it like Mexicans and I don't know, trans people did it to them or something. I think that just speaks to the success of right-wing talk radio. True, 100%. And this I'll say without a hint of irony, if this country is to be saved, that shit needs to be banned. You cannot have a democracy when 100 million Americans have actual, genuine ideological poison being drip-fed into the brains 100% of the time by people who are legally allowed to lie indefinitely with no consequences. Like 100%, like that, like absolutely. You cannot, no country could survive that.